Hello, good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Michelle Rosas, and I chose to do my film and philosophy video presentation review on the movie Life of Pi. So let's get into a little bit of the film's background and information. It was released about 8 years ago this month, November 21st, 2012. It was awarded some Academy Awards, one of them being Best Music, and it was originally a novel written by Jan Martel. It's categorized under the genre adventure and drama, and it's about 127 minutes in length. Some of the key artists include the director Ang Lee. He's a Taiwanese-American film director and producer and screenwriter, and then later came to the United States. Another artist includes cinematographer Claudio Miranda, the screenwriter David McGee. He's now a 50-year-old writer. He used to be an actor before he took a crack at screenwriting. He was nominated twice for an Oscar award, and I believe he earned the film about 11 Academy Award nominations. And he admitted that he was pretty scared when he first took up the project because he didn't think that he could turn this book into a 3D Marvel. Yeah. Some of the cast members include the main protagonist, which is Pi Patel. He's played by 4 different people throughout the film. The younger boy, he grows to be like a teenager, and grown man, Pi, I wrote, we see throughout the beginning and toward the end of the film. The main actor we see is Suraj Sharma. His father, his mother, the cook, the writer, Anandi, which is the girl that he falls in love with before he leaves India, the priest, which serves kind of as his mentor and sort of guides him and shines light on Jesus Christ when he's curious as a young boy, and his brother Ravi, who doesn't really believe in the God, or maybe he does, it wasn't really specified, but he kind of pokes fun at his brother Pi for believing in Christ. And Ravi was played by 2 different people as well throughout the film. So the story takes place in India, where Passin is raised. And yes, Passin is his real name, not Pi. His name Passin directly translates from the French language to swimming pool, but in a country like India where not many people speak French, they would kind of tease him and call him P for pissing. He adopted the name Pi. His family who owns this zoo. The zoo eventually goes bankrupt and they can no longer afford to live in the country that they do, so his father decides to move the family to Canada for more opportunities. And they get on this ship on board the Pacific, and as in the middle of the voyage, a storm hits, sinking the ship. The ship also had some of the most valuable animals of the zoo. So some of these animals were also on board, and some of the ship workers kind of just throw them onto this life raft boat, and not knowing that other animals were in it already. So there's a zebra, there's a hyena, and I believe an orangutan ends up swimming to the boat for safety. So they kind of just stray away. They end up getting cast away in the middle of the Pacific, and Pi's alone with these 3 animals. So the hyena, I believe, ends up killing the zebra, injuring it, and then killing off the orangutan because it's the most aggressive and maybe the most hungry, I don't know, but it kills them off. And then about a day into the voyage or the movie, this Bengal tiger kind of just comes out from underneath the tarp and kills off the hyena, leaving only Pi and the tiger on by themselves. And of course, Pi's a little bit afraid at first, but the tiger is just as afraid of Pi as Pi is of the tiger. So Pi ends up building like this little raft just to be away from the tiger so he doesn't eat him. But after weeks and weeks and months of just being alone on the ocean, I think they both kind of decide to make peace with each other, and kind of they're only friends. So 227 days total, I believe a little bit over 7 months. They're on this voyage, struggling to survive and find, the meaning in life and to keep going. And they end up finding like motivation in themselves. A little bit about the secularism in the film. Pi was like very multi-religious. He believed in 3 different religions, one of them being Hinduism, the other being Christianity, and lastly, Islam. So secular humanism is where people choose a religious worldview and truth based on personal preference. So that's kind of what Pi chose to do as kind of like an agnostic believer. But secular humanism basically is a belief where there's no one creator. Humans define right or wrong or right from wrong, and they live an ordinary life with a possessive structure, and it's defined by scientific inquiry of religious pathology or reason, and people can live their intelligence rather than depending on a god or a certain religion. I believe the applied philosophy in this film is more so humanism than secularism, because Pi definitely isn't a secular man. He is a believer of many gods. He talked about his father being ill and that he would pray and pray and God never answered his prayers, that God wasn't the one to fix him or save him in the end. It was modern medicine, it was science, it was reason. He later goes on to quote this saying like, being a Catholic Hindu, he gets to not only feel guilty in front of one God, but before hundreds of gods instead of just one. He also believes that the only religious or philosophical belief he cannot embrace is doubt as a philosophy of life. Doubt is basically akin to choosing immobility as a method of transportation. So in other words, it doesn't work. Doubt, he says, is useful to keep your faith alive, but soon enough, we must all pass the Garden of Gethsemane and move on. This goes to show that not only is Pi not secular, but he believes in the soul and purpose of other beings, not just humans. So he believes that animals have souls, they have feelings, they know what he's going through. And he can see through them, not just like they're just reflections of himself, as his father would say. So you can see in the next clip how this conversation between Pi and his dad at the dinner table with his family kind of demonstrates his dad's view when Pi tells him that he's a believer of many gods and that he can't choose a religion, but he wants to be baptized to Christ. So we can go ahead and take a look here.
You only need to convert to 3 more religions, Piscine, and you will spend your life on holiday.
Are you going to Mecca this year, Swami Jesus? Or to Rome for your coronation as Pope Pia?
Here's the point. No? You cannot follow 3 different religions at the same time, Piscine.
Why not?
Because believing in everything at the same time is the same as not believing in anything at all.
He's young, Santosh. He's still finding his way.
And how can he find his way if he does not choose a path? Listen, instead of leaping from one religion to the next, why not start with reason? In a few hundred years, science has taken us farther in understanding the universe than the religion has in 10,000.
The father is right. Science can teach us more about what is out there, but not what is in here.
I'd much rather have you believe in something I don't agree with than to accept everything blindly. And that begins with thinking rationally. Do you understand? Good.
I would like to be baptized.
So I can name 2 examples in the film where secular humanism is pretty apparent. One of them being where the end of the film, he kind of thanks his father for his reasonable mentality as well as rationality. The film concludes with a writer who goes to Pi's house because he wants to write this story about being casted away and the shipwreck and how he survived. Well, at the end of the voyage, we see 2 reporters come up to Pi in the hospital in Mexico, the shore that he ends up washing up on. And they want to inquire basically what happened to the ship, why it came down, how he survived. and why everyone else didn't. But when Pi gives his side of the story, these reporters don't want to believe it because they believe nobody else will buy it. So they want something that's going to sell. They don't want a story that's not going to explain rationally what happened. So Pi, remembering how his father's mentality was and his beliefs and way of thinking, gave them another alternative story that was a little bit more realistic and just less foolish and ridiculous. So like no fantasy. The hyena took place as the cook, the orangutan took place as the mom, the zebra was a sailor, and the Bengal tiger, Richard Parker was his name, ended up being Pi in his story. So a little bit symbolic, but the story ends with young Pi narrating the story of the animals to this young writer who wants to write his story. And Pi gives him the option of choosing the story with the animals or the story with the humans. And he asks the writer which story he thinks is the better one, which one he would prefer to write on. And the writer goes to say the story with the tiger, that's the better story. That's the one that he would believe. And Pi, he concurs, and he goes to say, and so it goes with God, meaning people choose religious worldview and truth based on personal preference, but preference or familiarity is not the same as truth. The movie kind of seems to be somewhat of an affront to truth, or the notion that there is only one truth. Everyone who watches it will have a different interpretation, and that's not necessarily wrong. Another scene where I see humanism, secular humanism, taking place is a scene where the tiger, Richard Parker, and Pi are on the boat, and there's another storm. Not as bad as the first one, but still as scary and aggressive. And Pi is kind of maybe not in his right mind, but I mean, who are we to say? He's screaming at the sky. He thinks that the god of the storms are taking control and that they're the ones doing this and they're totally in control. Pi faces this realization as he's facing the storm. He starts calling out the names of all the gods, starts yelling at the big waves, at the thunder, the lightning, at the sunlight. He calls out Richard Parker's name to come see the gods. But when he sees that Richard Parker, the tiger, is pretty afraid, he's actually scared of what's going on, and realizes that the gods aren't really saving him. And contrary, they're doing more harm than good. So essentially, he ends up not believing in any of these faiths or practices at all. It really brings out the humanism of the film, as he's very empathetic to Richard Parker, the tiger. In the end, like I mentioned, that Pi is pretty thankful to his father and gives credit to the lessons that he showed him at a young age. One of them being that animals don't have feelings, they don't have souls, they only care about themselves, basically. They're animals, they're different from humans. Pi sort of bought into that, but he also kind of went against it and still grew attached to this tiger, Richard Parker. So when they get to the shore of Mexico off the coast, Richard Parker hops off the raft, just looks into the jungle and doesn't look back. He just goes into the jungle, and that was that for the tiger and their relationship. So his father was right in showing that not to grow attached to animals. They don't have feelings for you, and that we are separate entities. I ended it with this quote: "We may be entitled to our own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts." And I thought that was a really good quote to tie everything together. But all in all, yeah, I would definitely recommend everyone watch this film at least once. Yeah, it's just awesome. So give it a shot. Other than that, thank you for watching my review, and I'll see you guys in class.